That's pretty cool.
Pat, you're recording this meeting?
I just turned it on because that's where the chat will persist as long as it's to everyone as opposed to private.
Interesting.
Now, I'm on this plan, I'm exceeding my capacity, so I'm busily downloading other Zoom meetings so I can free up space to record others.
Maybe I should like do it. I should do the meeting because I have the enterprise version of Zoom.
Oh,
so
that's a
you
thought.
just let me know. It just comes through my work.
Well,
There's the
as long
Zoom.
as it's okay with your terms of service and everything. So
there's the Zoom info, and we'll have lots of grad students and postdocs and faculty on the call. So I think it's super relevant, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you're able to join us tomorrow. You're all welcome. We do it every Thursday at 2 p.m.
You're finding it useful and helpful. That's good. That's good. Because everybody's remoting in and everybody's only some modest set of essential services are actually happening on campus, or what's the status of that?
Oh, no, I wouldn't. It's pretty, we're super busy. We're just trying to do all our work from remote. So like all the teaching has transitioned to online, which is completely new for everybody. Yep. And I'm trying to get the people back in the lab to do COVID research. So it's just as busy, but you just have to have so much more communication with everybody. I mean, I used to have an all staff meeting once a quarter. I have 3 per week now.
Oh boy.
And when I asked people this week, I'm like, can we drop the cadence? Maybe we go to twice per week. The response was no. We like meeting. We like seeing everybody. There's like a gazillion people on the call.
Oh boy.
People need people right now. A lot of people are alone.
We're finding that to be the case. We had a Zoom Rotary meeting today. The person from Grid Alternatives presented, shared her slides. It was a really good talk. My beer club that I used to complain that, I was always tied up against this meeting. We just concluded. I said, guys, I got to give you a heads up, and no later than 10 minutes from now, we got to wrap this up. But we had like 9 people on chit-chatting, sharing a beer remotely, and talking about how shocked we were about a number of things in our current situation, as well as just how grim it is for so many people. And for those of you who follow it, John Prine died yesterday of COVID-19 complications. Some of us really loved his music. But there's so many more that are, are sick or in harm's way, and or as Elizabeth talks about, are anxious and concerned about it. So,
yeah, talking about who died, there has been rumors that Daniel Ortega died. Not been confirmed.
That'd be a real interesting power thing. As anybody else, I've just been swamped on other stuff, so I haven't tried to read the Nicaraguan resistance journalism. Prensa, I think La Prensa publishes from Costa Rica.
I think La Prensa was probably, reported. There's been no news, but I think that one website, I think Guardian carried some info from news today. But otherwise, Daniel Ortega has not come to public light since March 12th, I think. And so everybody's like, where is he? What is he doing?
Yeah, that's very interesting, because at least in talking with Adrufo in the country office, maybe Phil's got an update on this, we can turn to it. There had not been much news coming and guidance coming from government of Nicaragua. Instead, people were taking their cues from international news and starting to work from home and distance and so forth. But I'm not sure if that's changed or not. Guatemala, on the other hand, had implemented a very harsh curfew, 4 p.m. to 4 a.m., something like that. Belize has a pretty harsh curfew, little different times, but specific guidance coming from government. I just don't know where Nicaragua's at in that. So at any rate, that's I'd be very interested in hearing what people know about that. And do we want to go ahead and get started on this? I'm just looking to see whether there's anybody else that's trying to get in. I don't see anybody else trying to get in. I see a number of people are muted. That's fine. I can unmute all just for fun, just so that All participants are unmuted, it says, but I think then participants can mute themselves, which is the case here on a number of people. That's fine.
Yeah.
I think
you can
one
do
thing
that.
that's changed with Zoom is now you cannot start the meetings without the admin logging in. Everybody else is just blocked.
I think
And
you still can, because if you're the host, you have to go in and change that setting to say people can't enter until the host is there.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because I actually went in and changed it to do that because that's a little bit more protective with Zoom.
Yeah, I know they're also introducing passwords and stuff like that, so random people don't show up.
It's got an interesting, what I noticed, and I haven't quite mastered it, is in the participants panel, there's now a different, there's the invite function has been moved over there, as well as some other icons that I don't understand that talk about yes, no, go slower, go faster, more, clear all, allow mute participants on entry, allow participants to unmute themselves, play enter exit chime, allow participants to rename themselves, enable waiting room. So there's a bunch of stuff over here that I haven't quite mastered, but it just feels different and new. Actually, I have early on, there was a message here from Elizabeth saying that she couldn't unmute herself. Apparently only you can unmute me. That's where I've unmuted all. I've admitted
Okay,
all.
now I'm unmuted again. Thanks. It wouldn't let me unmute myself.
Oh, I'm curious. Well, let's see if there's, I have a function called unmute all. So I should ask, Keyshawn, you're not unmuted, or yeah, now I see your status changing here over here in the participant bar about who's muted and who's not muted. Claire, I could try and unmute you. Let's see whether that makes a difference.
I can unmute myself.
You could or could not?
I can, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. If you'd like to, I didn't mean to unmute you then and invade your privacy that way. I'm sorry. Daniel, how about you? Are you happy as you are? I can
unmute myself also. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. All right. And Susan Witebski, I think are you consciously muted on purpose because you have a locomotive roaring around your kitchen and you don't want us to hear it? Or
Leah also can't unmute herself.
Oh, okay.
It's weird.
Who can't unmute?
Leah.
No, can't unmute. All right.
Yeah, it's weird. So I think what happens is, since Pat has this control over the mute all and unmute, if you go in and mute yourself, you can't get back out of it. That was my experience.
Oh, I see. Oh, Lordy. Well, it's an imperfect thing. As I often say, it's a poor workman who curses his tools. We'll just have to try and get by as best we can. Do we want to get to knitting here and run through I had put out just the usual kind of little agenda. It wasn't much. But
we lost Susan here too. She just disappeared.
Oh, I see she's dropped out of the list here. Okay. And this is bizarre. I'm going to try unmuting all participants are unmuted, it claims. And yet clearly, Keyshawn, it shows you as muted. Can you unmute yourself, Keyshawn?
Yeah, I was able to now.
Okay. All right. If people want me to do anything, let me know. I'll watch the chat bar.
He's just playing with all of us.
Yeah. Well, there you go. All right.
Trouble.
Such fun. So let's see. I basically had just thrown in the usual stuff. Ongoing work in the field. I wanted to share that the post-trip report was approved. And I had progress on completion of design package and the volunteer records so we can get approved to proceed on remote implementation task. And I put in some sub items there, the pump installation statement of work, the O&M manual, the drawings, the volunteer village trip and plan, anything else. I had an item to report out on the expense report submittal status and other. So does anybody else have something else they care deeply about, or do you want to start ticking through that?
My thumbs up was for the trip report getting approved. Great job.
Well, thanks. Phil and I basically answered comments from a number of reviewers, and Phil was able to use a folder we set up so it could drop in the trip reports from the country office in there. Not trip reports, but their trip reports from going out and visiting the site and so forth. So at any rate, that's good that we got that behind us. And so now we're on to next steps. So does anybody else need me to, Claire, are you is that current that you can't mute? Should I try and unmute you?
No, I'm good now.
Okay, good enough. All righty. Let's see here. Well, Phil, do you want to give us an update on ongoing work in the field?
Yeah, so a couple things. So I did forward Eveline's last report from her visit last week. Basically, but she also said that this is Holy Week, so everybody's on vacation, so no work's being done. Talking about travel through Nicaragua, Francisco told me previously that like materials that we needed, he is not able to go into Managua anymore. So he can order stuff and have it shipped out of there, which is what he did with the lids for the brake pressure tanks. We got 2 big steel lids that they fabricated in Managua, and we saw pictures of them loading that on top of a bus to go and transport it to Santa Lucia, then to El Llanito. And so they've got those 2 lids in there. Still need to do a little bit of work on it. They got to drill some holes and put in a hole for a padlock to go on it when they get it mounted. But making some progress.
Now, when he says he can't go into Managua, did he elaborate, or is it because he doesn't think it's wise, or are there physical roadblocks or checkpoints or control
Well, originally
points?
I thought it was because Managua was on lockdown, but after talking to Eveline, I could have misinterpreted that. But it sounds like it could be EWB is just not allowing them to go. I know they're telling them to work from home. Eveline says she's only able to go out on field visits 1 day a week. Other than that, she works from home. And Francisco works from home as well.
Okay. And certainly I saw that from Adrulfo when he and I have been in some WhatsApp checks on the other side of this. We're having a few back and forth natterings with our Rotary Club partner in Messiah that we're comfortable will get resolved, but nonetheless, it's in that context I've been checking with Adrulfo on stuff. And so he appeared to be working from home to the maximum extent possible. And he was impressed with my photos of going to Costco at 7:15 in the morning. He thought that looked like an interesting shopping experience. So I haven't shared those with all of you guys, but so I don't have anything fresh on there. That sounds like we're ticking along okay. So Martine and Juan Antonio are still able to work, although not during Easter week, but these are kind of interesting, yeah.
Right, just want to share the map that Eveline has marked up as they're making progress. I'm not sure how well you can see that.
Real well.
This is, I mean, they've already done the trenches, so now it's really just putting the pipe in. They hired another plumber person to be doing most of the plumbing work while Martine does like making tap stands and other kind of construction activities. So with this other guy helping, made a lot of progress. So it looks like they're starting to go up. Sector 5 is over this way. They finished, I think this was Sector 1. This is the path, let's see, I think this is the one up toward Adelaida's house up this way. So I think this is maybe about as far as we were able to go anyway. So it looks like, for the most part, it's the stuff in Sector 5 where Eugenio's house is over here, and maybe a little bit here. I think this is the change that we made. We're not going on this, this is the street that's kind of paved over with like cobblestones.
Yeah, this is where we're not going to tear up the cobblestone street in Santa Lucia.
And we still have this one long path to go downstream of the brake pressure tank here. So there's a brake pressure tank here, and the other one was like right over here. Looks like they still haven't done the pipeline going up toward the storage tank area, which would be more of a complicated pipeline to go do. But overall, they've done quite a bit. I think I forgot how many tap stands. She said they finished something like 18 or something. Let's see if we've got them here. And what's good to see is that they keep doing leak tests on everything, so that our little leak test jig worked pretty well. They put in supports for, there's one river crossing that's actually not part of our scope. It was a private family at the end of the line on Sector 1 they bought their own pipe on here, and they asked Martine to put an overhead river crossing. And Elizabeth Diaz visited that site and said that was appropriate the way that they're doing it. But Martine did ask for us to take a look at his plans before he built the concrete supports, and Javier gave him a thumbs up on how he's doing it. And so that's what he was doing this last week, was to build these things. This is just a 3/4 inch, and he's got galvanized pipe for this one section.
Excellent.
And you can see he's made the nice forms. And this is where it's going.
Yeah, I remember when we walked down there that depending on how you routed the pipe, that looked like that would be appropriate to do something like that.
Right, so in total, 828 meters of the 2-inch PVC pipes were installed. I thought they'd done more than that looking at that map, but anyway, it's still good progress.
So Phil, are you still dropping those in that one G Drive folder that we set up to answer the mail on the post-trip report? Is that where these are ending up?
I did not do that, but that's a great idea. Drop.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to think of where we'll find these, because those have got nice, there'll be a time real soon where we're going to be going to the chapter and saying, oh yeah, we're ready to participate in the internal grant program, and here's our 20 photos and a zillion more, and all the other stuff to get the next chunk of grant money out of the chapter. So having these things available to us so we can grab them and use them is something to keep in mind. Oh, look at that.
Beautiful door. It's actually cheaper than putting a steel door.
I think, and it's so handsome. This is lovely.
This looks good. The one comment they made was that traditionally, I guess our drawing showed the doors opening outwards, but they said traditionally in Nicaragua, they always have the doors going inward. So they made them going inward here. And the only problem with that I can see is if we end up putting some equipment in that sticks out that the doors get to run into, then maybe we have to change the doors around. And they said that it can be done to change it if we need to.
Okay.
But for now, looks nice, got a lock on it. So this was some of the prerequisites that we needed to have in place before they can bring the electrical contractor in to install a breaker panel box.
Great. Well, that's a good report, Phil.
The lids, because there's a picture of the lid someplace, but they look pretty darn heavy duty here, Javier, probably even more sturdy than I thought. It looked like it was a 4-man carry, even for these.
Really? Even for the 1/4 inch, huh?
It looked like, let me find the picture, maybe it's in
Well, I was curious too, the photos on WhatsApp showed it looked like it was on the bus going to Esteli.
Yes. That's
Did they send them to Esteli and then took them to El Anito from there? Is that...
Oh, I don't know. I knew they had to get them. They were fabricated in Managua, and Javier wasn't able to, Francisco wasn't able to pick them up himself. So they had to put them on the bus someplace there. Let's see.
Got it. Interesting.
Just a second while the pictures load here. Okay, so this is the lid, one of the lids. I can make that a little bigger here. Yeah, so it looks pretty heavy.
Oh, wow.
So it's a 2-inch lip on it, which is what we specified so that the rain would run off of it rather than risk pooling inside the tank and contaminating the water tank. Our plan that we're going to drill a couple holes here and put like bolts in it. This is actually be upside down on top of the brake pressure tank. So we have a couple bolts. You slide it on one side, and on the other side down here, we put in a hasp and a padlock so that we don't have somebody trying to make some money in the middle of the night with some scrap metal.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. It's kind of good that the weight adds a little more security to these.
Yeah.
Right. Anything else?
How much did they end up being, Phil?
$200 a piece, something like that.
That's expensive. But you only need 2 of them, so.
Just need 2 of them, right. Some of the tap stands.
Looking good.
Yep, so they're running short of these little couplers. There's female to female couplers here. So I think he just put on something else and a little cap onto it because he's running short of threaded caps too. And they can't find these in Nicaragua. I've got about 20 of them on my sprinklers in the backyard. I haven't figured out how to ship them down there. But again, I told them we don't really need this until we really commission the system. It's just a last minute thing you can screw onto the faucet. So I'm not too worried about it now. When we get closer, we'll figure out a way to buy them here and ship them down there if we need to. Yeah, we already seen some of these pictures. Inside of the door. Oh, this is just our instructions on how to mount the tank lid. Talked about that one already. Yeah, so here's how the lid's going to mount on. I got a couple of bolts here and hook it on here with a padlock.
Ideally, fiberglass would have been the best, but they couldn't find it, so it ended up being good.
Yeah, right. Let me just look through. Is there anything else that's worth popping out here? Yeah, actually, yeah, Martin says he doesn't have the right drill to drill those holes in there. But they're not working this week anyway. I thought when I get back in touch with them, I'd suggest he actually go to the welder in town. I'm assuming the welder would have the right kind of equipment to make some holes that we need to do for that. But if not, then yeah, we can purchase a drill and some, I guess he'll need some not only bits to go drill through the metal, but we also have to have masonry bits to drill through the concrete to put the bolts in. Okay, that's about all I've got on present status.
Thanks, Bill. Those are terrific progress photos. You know, I don't know how it feels to you, whether you're in the daily soup of it, if it feels like you've always got Martine on the end of your WhatsApp or something, but it's really great to get, you know, a bundled update on that. I just think it's terrific. So thank you for driving it.
Oh, and Eveline's doing a great job. I really appreciate her very thorough reports that she does. Super. And whenever she's in town, I usually find sometime during the day I get Javier on the phone too, and we kind of go over a few things with her.
Oh, terrific.
Javier's very helpful. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great. I think the users over here, we were discovering there's some tweaks about, there's an entry where I can allow participants to unmute themselves, and that inadvertently got turned off. So now people apparently are able to unmute themselves, but I don't see Susan. Susan just appears to be unmuted, and I haven't heard her speak. So I don't know if Susan's.
I am here. I've got the message that says it's okay to unmute yourself. When I did that before, it would not let me unmute, and then it just totally froze and bounced me out. So I'm
well,
just ignoring that message.
We're glad you're back, and I confess, as I was commenting maybe before you got on, that the Zoom has changed a whole bunch of these settings by default, apparently responding to complaints about security and privacy and unwanted visitors causing mischief in Zoom sessions. Like I think LA, one of the Los Angeles school districts stopped using Zoom, which was a bit disruptive because all the kids are out of school and are using it for remote learning stuff. And so at any rate, so I'm struggling with what some of these new settings mean and their unintended ripple through effects when I'm trying to fiddle with them. So at any rate, good to hear you, Susan.
Yeah, I'm back. That's good.
Well, the next thing I had on my list, I think some of you, I said it before, was really that there's not much to say about it now. The post-trip report is approved. So thank goodness for that. We've got that in the rear view mirror. And then the next section was really how we're doing on progress of completion of the rest of the design. And I added the volunteer records so we can get approval to proceed on the next phase of our remote implementation. I suspect this is kind of like we need to throw down a trip with some phony date and then put our packages together, all our documents, and do everything where we have to touch a volunteer village record. and then that gets submitted, and approval of that means we're good to proceed, which in this case means we're not traveling. That trip is just a phony trip, but then we can proceed with the next phases of our project scope.
Are we going to have to do another remote implementation plan that we started before and then?
No, we're already into that, I think, Susan. So I don't think we have to fiddle around with that anymore. I think what we do now is we just say, it's the next phase. We're ready to proceed with the next phase. So here's our package. We'll check with Elizabeth Diaz. I'm not sure, but I think before we had to throw down a fake trip, if you will, because the reports, the technical reports for this next phase of implementation, I think are associated with a trip, but I could be wrong. Like on this post-trip report, I got it all screwed up because I did something wrong in the volunteer village protocol, and Elizabeth Diaz had to straighten it out before it could be submitted. So we should check with her, but I would say the main thing is just getting our documents together, that part's ready, and then there'll be some volunteer village crap that we have to do to get ready to be able to get it submitted. And sometimes, I think on every time we've done this, we've had to get Elizabeth Diaz to help us get it submitted. So I wouldn't worry too much about what those volunteer village things are, other than we should make sure that Elizabeth Diaz, if she can coach us up front so I don't make some error or Phil doesn't make an error in trying to get this stuff together, that'd be good. But I think it's mostly getting our technical package together. And I was curious about, could we just get a status update on that stuff? I thought we were getting real close here.
So the two major documents, the O&M manual, Susan put in some excellent comments and questions on there. I've gone through, tried to respond to the questions. I'm not sure I completely made all the fixes that need to be made. In fact, I'm sure I did not make all the fixes yet. And it's gonna take a little bit of work, I think, to go through all that stuff. So that's one document. The other one is the implementation pre-trip plan, which has other attachments going to it. And again, I've gotten 2/3 of the way through that document, I think, and making changes and updates. And I'm right now kind of stuck at a point where I need to update the construction schedule. So kind of took some time off today to work on a construction schedule update for the remaining work to be done, the storage tank excavation, and I'm going with a baseline that we're going with the plastic tank. So installing the plastic tanks, chlorinators, putting in a retaining wall, French drains, then as well as finishing the electrical connections and doing the pump installation, and then the overall system commissioning. So got working on a schedule for doing that over several weeks, even assuming it's a remote implementation, still trying to put something together for Elizabeth and the in-country folks to be able to use as a roadmap.
Got it.
You know, it's still a fair amount of work. I'm trying to think how to get through all this, because a lot of times I get partway through and I have questions. I'm not really sure who to ask. I'm almost wondering if people have time these days to set up a, I don't know, 4-hour session and just get a bunch of you guys together and let's just kind of walk through this thing section by section and write it up right there to fix what needs to get done.
I think that's a good idea, Phil. It's sort of trying to do what we used to do with the in-person meetings, but just say, you know, we can't meet in person, but so let's commit that chunk of time to go through and there's the document. We're just editing on the screen together. I mean, we're just looking at it, making the edits, getting it cleaned up, move on to the next section.
Yep, I'm good with that. So my schedule's flexible.
You're not going out that much, huh? I thought of you yesterday. We were up walking in Sycamore at the Veterans Park end of Sycamore Grove. And this guy, it's like a 250-foot rise from where you start this little thing up to the top. Really nice viewpoints. And here comes this guy on his trail bike. He gets up there to us, and then he comes over the top. And instead of going down the trail that he came up on, he just takes off over the crown of the hill. But I couldn't get my camera going fast enough to get him. But it would have been a nice little piece of video. And I thought of you, that you would empathize with this guy.
Well, talking about that, I was riding my bike in Pleasanton Ridge back at a Sunol, and I ran into your buddy Dan and his wife coming up.
Oh, the Bergmans. Okay.
Bergmans, yeah. Yeah,
you guys are docents on similar things too. Yeah.
Right. So
small world.
Yep.
We took a week off from Spanish class, so no hellos from Hortensia. But last week, Phil and I were in passing hellos back and forth to our joint Spanish teacher. So.
Okay, so if I can get some help from a few people, do you want to pick a time tomorrow? I don't know.
If you want, all kidding aside, I can take a look here and see what tomorrow looks like for me. It's Thursday. I've got time in the morning. I have time until early. I have time until basically 5 o'clock. So I've got chunks of time in there all along. So if there's,
I'm free except for a window between 1 and 2, and also at 6:30 to 7:30. I got 2 things going on. But other than that,
something before noon. Then you want to try a start with a few hours before noon.
Sure, 9 o'clock.
Sure, I'll throw that in here.
You don't need me, right? There's nothing technical on there.
Tell you what, if you're going to be near a phone, how about we give you a call if something comes up?
Yeah, if something comes up, you can call me.
Is this for the O&M manual or for the other stuff?
Well, Susan, if you're going to participate, what would you like to do?
Well, I think the O&M manual is the only thing I know about.
Okay, let's do the O&M manual. Nick or Daniel, you guys free? Anybody else want to participate too?
I can make it for part of it, probably. I have a lab that technically goes until 12, but we've been finishing early, so I should be done by around 10 to 10:30 and can log on after that.
Okay, cool.
Sounds good.
And Susan, is 9 o'clock work for you?
It does.
Cool.
And I too have something from 1 to 2, but otherwise my day's open.
Well, let's make as much progress as we can in that window of time, and then just throw down another one for the next chunk of unfinished work, and just keep doing it till we're done.
I stepped away for a moment. What day are we talking about?
Tomorrow?
Yeah, I don't think I can tomorrow morning. But yeah, during the next one.
Okay.
Weekends are best for me, probably.
Let's see.
Same here for me.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this point. Other than my weekend is pretty free. Yeah, it is Easter this Saturday and Sunday, but I don't think the churches will be packed as previously forecast by somebody.
9 a.m. Saturday then is for another session?
Sure.
Do we still need to do the statement of work for that well?
The
We
pump?
need something along those lines.
Yeah, Javier, I think that's on Pat's agenda to get to you soon to find out what the next step is on that.
Oh, it's on his agenda. Okay, I'll wait till you're ready.
Okay. All right, good. So right now we've got a session tomorrow morning, another one Saturday morning, and maybe after that we'll kind of see where we are.
Sounds good. Same number, same story. I mean, same Zoom link is what I meant to say.
Right.
Okay, so we've got a couple of those knocked in there. Let's see what else. So whichever way you want to address those remaining items, the only things I think we talked about the O&M manual, got a plan for how to approach that. The pump installation statement of work, that's in that list. Drawings are in that list. And I think the volunteer village, we could just hold off to the end, and Phil and I could start trying to put that together and maybe counsel with Elizabeth Diaz to get any tips on that. But it's not gonna, I mean, it won't be pacing. It'll be what we have to do to throw our other finished materials in.
So on the pump sow, Larry Martin gave some nice comments. Javier, I was kind of hoping you were gonna take the next step then if we're ready, just get a final version of it to have the team look at before we send it out.
I can, unless I think Elizabeth wanted to take a crack at it. I'm not sure if she can. And then, yeah, I don't know if she's still on the call. Was it Elizabeth or?
I'm
This
on
is
the call.
on, and I think Susan's still on.
Was it Susan
I'm
or
taking,
Elizabeth?
I think it's Susan.
Yeah, I said
but-
I could take a crack at it, but then I never heard from anyone, so I wasn't sure what's going on. There are a whole bunch of questions that I'm going to need answered because there's a lot of outstanding stuff. Maybe that's like, and some of them are Phil's questions, like, do you need all those sensors, which Larry agreed did not make sense and may not even be possible.
You know, one suggestion on that, depending if we're overlapping, if we have Susan, if you're going to be on for the M&O and so forth, some of those things play into a greater or lesser degree to what we're writing down in the statement of work and what we plan to maintain and operate. So why don't we see if we can work both of those, kind of banging them back and forth? Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. That's what I was thinking. Maybe we start with that tomorrow morning and try to see what we can get done.
Sounds great. All right. That's good. I think that's a good approach. Sounds reasonable. Any other thoughts on that from anybody?
Yeah, if I can, if you guys get something together, I can give a final look at it either in the afternoon or in the weekend. Or if you have some question or something, I can hop on and off, but I won't be able to be on for too long.
Okay. And the other thing I want to stress on this, and I don't mean to seem cynical about this, or but we have to have a package to submit that's good enough to get out to review. If there's something that reviewers find questionable about it, they can let us know. If we're having a major disagreement about it, then that's not good. We should try and resolve that beforehand. But this package doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
On statement of work, on drawings, on M&O, on any of that stuff.
Pat, is the SOW part of this package or is it a separate thing?
I believe it's part of this package. Is that, Phil, isn't that part of what she'd asked us to have?
She wants us to have quotes in hand so that we're ready to go and award a quote by the time they approve our package.
On the other hand, that's just bullshit when I hear us say it that way, Phil, because what is going to happen is this statement. I mean, we've already got preliminary quotes and they bounce around all over the place. My suggestion is we throw those quotes in there, we throw in our statement of work, we say, look, clearly we need to get a better quote from people. And when we get approved to proceed, we'll work with the Nicaragua country office to get a better quote and work our way through that. But for her, I mean, we just need to turn this around in a jujitsu way and say, well, how's this really going to work?
I mean,
the way it's going to really work is,
that's what she told me back in January.
Yeah,
I was there.
So what's going to happen now is, for poor Francisco trying to put together quotes from a vendor for us on this statement of work, they will supersede and override these preliminary quotes we've gotten in hand that are a little bit disparate, and we'll be negotiating through the country office with whatever vendors come in with what can they do our well pump installation work until we get something we like. That's the way to think about this. I'm just convinced of this. And so
right. I agree. I think we should just use the quotes we have and just say it's an estimate, and then when the time comes, then we'll final quote and move on.
Yeah, that's probably fine. We'll put a 20% contingency on it or something. So
yeah, something like that. It's a way to get through it, because it will be informed by reality on the ground before we authorize them to place the order, right? That's what's gonna, so.
And that's what we do here in practice. I mean, in actual practice, you tell them what you want, and then sometimes the contractors comes out with things that you didn't even think about. And then they make the things that you want happen, or they negotiate with you and you say, well, okay, you can't get this, but you can have this.
Yeah,
and
yeah. I think
that's the only way to do it.
So so I think I think that's just a sensible approach to it. And I think that's actually, when I think about the rest of the work scope, this piece and, we'll throw in the baseline for the plastic tanks and the support work around that, but then we're going to turn right around and essentially do our little trade study about alternative tank construction methods for alternatives to the plastic tanks. And I'm sorry, I think I know the answer at this point. The answer is going to be ferro cement. That's the answer.
Hey, I got Larry Fleischer is doing a objective trade study on it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to prejudge the outcome of that, but I know
Sounds like you are.
I'm just saying. And, I have a feeling about it, Phil. Some people are saying that it really should be ferrocement tanks.
Yeah.
What do you have to lose? I'm sorry. Don't get me going. I'm having a hard time. On that note, is there anything else constructive to say about the design status? How about the rest of is the rest of our design distribution and the rest of that all just hunky-dory? Anything else we need to worry about there?
We got those drawings done. Claire and students got the drawings done, retaining wall, tank layouts, the manifolds, the French drains, everything is put together. Yeah, and all I did was combine it into a package, clean it up a little bit, and I sent that to you guys. So that should be good for commenting from.
I'd say it's good enough to submit, Javier. I mean, we should look at it, but in the spirit of what way we're talking about this, it's good enough to submit.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Because they'll probably have comments anyways, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's good enough really to submit.
You know what, I was just thinking, this is off topic, but I saw something flash by that EWB has got their annual best photograph competition going. Guess which best photograph I'm thinking of submitting? It's this one that's all rolled up in here. That's our drone photo composite with Javier's distribution system on it.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
We'll see whether or not they choke at that. At any rate.
Way to go.
One other thing, I did follow up with an EOS guy down in, I think it's in Esteli, the same office that Eveline is in, who they distribute the CTI-8 chlorinators. And since when I was down there, Eveline or Elizabeth, who mentioned that they were looking at developing other alternative versions of the CTI-8. So I did ask them if they had one that would work under pressure. That was a guy's name, Milton Rocha.
Yeah, Milton. Okay, good.
I think you've spoken to him in the past. Anyway, right. He unfortunately says no, they have not really made any changes to the CTI-8 that would work in the application.
That's an answer then. That's good to know. Then we don't have to have any more suspense about it. We can go with the baseline that you guys have got drawn up, and we're good to go. All righty. Okie doke. If we're moving on, then the last thing, I was able to talk with Larry Fan, the treasurer of the San Francisco Professionals, who because it's been a long time since I've submitted the kind of expense report that we're talking about for the students to offset a portion of their airfare. And he said basically they do the checks by snail mail. So I'll take a look. Maybe Phil, you recall. I just can't remember whether the receipts that you guys have, if you have that information, is there. But we'll need to get it. He said no, they don't do Zelle, or they don't do some other way of getting the money to you. And then the other mechanics of it are just, there's one expense report for each person that is going to get a check sent to them. So I'll get started on that. I didn't get further on it. I thought I'd have more to report today, but I've been overtaken by events. But that's the update on the expense report submittal status, is that just one per traveler, and it's a check, and it needs to have a physical snail mail address that it goes to. So wherever you're sheltering in place, we'll have to figure out how to get it to you, or if you want it sent somewhere else, like if there's a place that's better to receive it or whatnot, we can do that. But that's the update. So it's pretty short, and then I think we're down to other.
So one other thing I've got, I did have a text exchange, a WhatsApp exchange with Luz Danya a week ago, I guess. Just asking her how they're holding up with all the coronavirus stuff. And she says actually Alcanza is very concerned. And they said they had a meeting with the water committee folks, just that overall El Unido is a pretty poor community. And if they start closing down some of the factory jobs, I'm not sure what factories that people work at, but there's some fear that a lot of people are going to be losing their jobs. And since the community is so poor, it's going to be very hard on this community. So I did mention that, hey, if necessary, let us know, and we'll see if we can help with some fundraising to go and help them out through this. And yeah, she said she'd let us know what's going on. She was supposed to have a follow-up meeting late last week with the water committee on what next steps they might be looking at taking, or what measures to take to help kind of mitigate the economic damage that this is maybe causing. So just letting you know, if I hear any more, I'll let you guys know. And Pat, you still there?
He seems to have disappeared.
I
It
gotta
suddenly it popped up. It said he was no longer the host.
Maybe he had the same problem I did, where it just freaked on him.
Actually, he's still shown as the host when I look at the participants. But
well, so I had to sign in under his name to get in. It wouldn't let me in, so it's got.
Oh, it's you. That's you. You're the host now. He's gone.
But I was kind of co-hosting it with Pat when he was doing all this stuff. But I don't know what happened to him.
Actually, he's gone. I think it's just you, Phil.
Okay, well, I think we're about wrapping it up here anyway.
Do we assign everything to Pat?
What else do we have to assign him to?
Oh, you know what we need to bug him about? I told him if he will get those.
Hold on a second. He's calling me on my phone here. Hey, Pat, what happened to you?
My system is frozen up, and so I can't see or hear anybody, and I'm going to have to restart that machine.
Oh, shoot. His system locked up on him, and he has to restart his computer. But we're just about to finish up, but Elizabeth says she had some action items she wanted to assign to you first.
Can you just tell him that he said he would get me some a folder with some photos and video, and I'll work on getting a movie together. But I need his content.
Oh, can you repeat that, Pat? Can you hear? I got you on the speakerphone.
Pat, just a reminder, if you can get me some photos, some video, even like if you have short descriptions of things that I can use, I'll work on putting a video together.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder. It occurred to me again, and I just am I'm hanging on by my fingernails and drowning.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
Alrighty, guys, all of a sudden Phil froze up on my machine, and then I realized no, my machine's frozen up on all of you. So apologies.
It's okay. And gang, if you would like to join us at 2 o'clock tomorrow, you can join our ChemWell and hopefully hear a really interesting discussion, as well as then have a guided meditation at the end.
Nice.
And just see the Zoom ID in the chat.
Okay, thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank
you.
you.
All set here. Can I restart this machine? This looks like it's good.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Alrighty, good night.
All right, we'll see you guys later.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care, everyone. Good night.
Stay safe, healthy.
Bye,
Yep,
and I'll talk
likewise.
to you, Phil,
Bye.
tomorrow.
Yep, tomorrow morning at 9. Whoever wants to call, same number.
Bye.
Bye.